Crime and Crime Again is a true crime podcast containing subject matter that may be graphic or disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. This episode discusses topics that may be triggering, such as sexual assault, sexual abuse of minors, substance abuse, and sex trafficking. Please take care while listening. Born on January 16, 1983, Leah Rochelle Peebles grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, with her parents, Sharon and John, and her two brothers. Leah grew up in a relatively average Christian household, and her parents have described her as a loving and bright child. But Leah did experience a heavy trauma when she was only 4 years old. And again, I do want to put a huge trigger warning right here. If you don't want to hear this next bit, I would skip ahead about 15 seconds or so. As a toddler, she revealed to her parents that a trusted relative had been sexually abusing her. Despite this, Leah did still grow up to be fun-loving and charismatic. But as far as I could find, she never received any counseling as a child to help her cope with this trauma. Leah excelled in school, both academically and within her social life. In high school, she was quite popular. She joined her school's cheerleading squad and developed an interest in theater. On top of that, she always came home with excellent grades and kept up with all of her schoolwork. And I will go ahead and put another huge trigger warning right here. So if you don't want to hear this next bit, I would go ahead and skip about 30 seconds or so. Sometime during Leah's freshman year of high school, after inviting a boy she was friends with to come in her room through her window, she was raped by this person she had trusted and called a friend. Leah initially kept this a secret from her parents, but it didn't take long for her parents to notice a change in her personality. She became less cheerful and talkative, and grew more withdrawn and isolated. When Sharon, Leah's mother, finally asked her what was going on, she admitted that her former friend had raped her. She was taken to a hospital to be examined, and doctors did determine that she had suffered physical trauma as a result of the rape. But beyond that, there was no physical or biological evidence to point to the attacker. And because of this, the district attorney discouraged Leah's family from pressing charges and making a case. Leah's attacker was ultimately never charged, and simply moved to a different school. It was after this that Leah's mental health declined drastically. Her grades began to fall, and after her sophomore year, Leah quit cheerleading. It was also during her sophomore year that Leah started hanging out with a new group of friends and began experimenting with alcohol and drugs. There was one incident in particular when Sharon went to Leah's school to bring her something she had forgotten at home. Sharon went directly to Leah's classroom, and when she arrived, she saw that Leah had fallen asleep and was face down on her desk, drooling. Leah was essentially unresponsive. Her mother immediately took her to a doctor who sent her to the emergency room to have her stomach pumped. It turned out that Leah had taken a mix of several different pills, and she stayed in the hospital for a week after this. Unfortunately, Leah did continue using alcohol and drugs throughout high school. By the end of her senior year of high school, Leah was failing several classes and almost didn't graduate. And after high school, she continued living with her parents, but she started partying heavily with her friends. Around this time, Leah did find a job at a local restaurant, but she continued using drugs. Soon, Leah's parents found out from a friend of hers that she had started using heroin, spending an estimated $80 a day at the peak of her addiction. When her parents talked to her about it, Leah admitted that she was struggling badly with her addiction and didn't know how to stop. At 18 years old, Leah was admitted into Fort Worth Teen Challenge, a Christian-run residential treatment center. She spent 21 months there, and while she was going through treatment, she actually obtained her cosmetology license. When she was discharged from the treatment center, she landed a job at a local salon. For a while, Leah remained clean and was on track to putting her life back together. But she soon started partying and using again, and one day Sharon discovered dirty needles and bloody tissues in Leah's purse. At one point, Leah was arrested for possessing methamphetamine and served 30 days in jail. After she was released, she did go back to work but continued using, and was eventually arrested for a second time, serving a longer sentence. After the second arrest, she lost her job at the salon, which was a huge blow to her mental health. There isn't really much information out there about Leah's life after her arrests or after losing her job at the salon. So now, we fast forward a few years to May of 2006. At this time, Leah was 23 years old and still living in Fort Worth, Texas with her parents. She had gone through cycles of getting clean and relapsing, and her parents continued trying to get her help and get her back on track. According to her parents, there was a huge part of Leah that truly did want to stop, and they made tremendous efforts to help her. But addiction is a difficult and terrifying cycle that is incredibly hard to break out of. But in May of 2006, Leah was presented with an opportunity for a fresh start. Close family friends offered to let Leah move in with them for a few months to get on her feet and turn her life around. The friends lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a little over 9 hours away from where Leah had spent her entire life in Fort Worth, Texas. Leah was excited for the opportunity, and she agreed to make the move and live with them for a while. Before the move, Leah's dad bought her a silver Volkswagen Beetle so that she would have a way to get around in her new city. He also rode with her on the 600-mile drive to her new home. After spending a few days together in Albuquerque, Leah drove her dad to the airport to catch his flight back to Fort Worth. That was the last time that John Peebles ever saw his daughter. After a week of living in Albuquerque, Leah found a new job as a waitress at the Flying Star Cafe. She seemed to be getting her footing and really trying to get back on the right path. Leah's dad had left her with a generous amount of money to get her by until she found a job and had money coming in. According to John, he had left enough money to get Leah through at least a couple of months. But 2 weeks after she moved to Albuquerque, Leah called her dad to wish him a belated happy birthday and asked him if he could send more money. Confused and a bit suspicious, her dad asked her where all of the money he'd left had gone, but he did end up sending her all of the cash he had left on him. On May 23, 2006, Leah's parents received a call from the family friends that Leah had been living with. They told her parents that Leah had left around 8 p.m. the night before and hadn't been back since. They also told Leah's parents that she had actually left them a voicemail, telling them that she went out with some friends and something had happened, but she would call them again later to tell them more. Leah never called again after leaving that voicemail. 2 days after Leah was last seen or heard from, her parents called police in Albuquerque and filed a missing persons report. Sharon and John were anxious and deeply worried, and they didn't like the idea of sitting idly and waiting for the police to begin an investigation. So her parents contacted Leah's phone company and were given access to both her phone records and her voicemails. When they looked over her phone records, they noticed that Leah had made and received upwards of 170 calls in the previous few days, and there was one number that showed up multiple times. Her parents called the number, and they talked to a woman who claimed she didn't know Leah personally, but she thought her cousin may have taken Leah on a date recently. So her parents found out who the man was, and they contacted him as well. The man told them that he had met Leah at a somewhat sketchy motel on the outskirts of the city, and he implied that he met Leah for sex work. According to the man, he didn't know where Leah had gone after they met up, and he hadn't spoken with her since. When Leah's parents listened to her voicemails, they heard a message from a man who said that he had repaired the damage on Leah's car from an accident, and he was trying to contact her to find out when she would be picking up the car. Leah's parents didn't know until that point that Leah had been in any kind of accident. When police in Albuquerque spoke with the mechanic who left the voicemail, he told them that Leah had dropped her car off at his shop after an accident of some sort, and she hadn't returned to pick up the car. According to the mechanic, it appeared that Leah had driven over a median and caused significant damage to the vehicle. He also revealed to police that Leah appeared to be high when she brought the car into the shop. The friends that Leah was living with went and picked up Leah's car, and it was at this point that her dad, John, decided to make the drive out to Albuquerque to see the car himself and to start searching for his daughter. When John saw the car, he noted that it didn't appear drivable, and he also found blood inside the car on the driver's side. It wasn't clear whether the blood came from an injury in the accident or if it was the result of drug use and needle injections. John spoke to the mechanic himself, and the mechanic actually offered up the first lead in Leah's disappearance. He told John that he thought he recognized Leah and had previously seen her behind a nearby video store, which was a popular area for local men to solicit sex workers. Employees at that video store also told John that they had seen Leah behind their store just 3 weeks before he arrived in Albuquerque. John continued canvassing the area trying to track down leads. He visited several clubs in the area hoping that employees may recognize Leah. And one person did. One of the dancers told John that she remembered Leah coming into the club looking for a job, and she was going by the name Maya. But he didn't find anyone else who remembered seeing Leah. After 10 days in Albuquerque searching for his daughter, John had to fly back home to Fort Worth to go back to work. But he soon returned to Albuquerque to continue his search. The second search was initially not leading anywhere, until one night, while John was leaving a motel that he suspected Leah may have been staying or working at. A sex worker approached John and he told her he was actually there for a different reason. He showed the woman a picture of Leah and asked if she recognized her. And she did. She called over to another woman nearby, and the second woman also recognized Leah. Not only that, but she remembered her name being Maya, and told John that she had seen Leah in the area just a week before. John gathered enough information to work out that Leah had been spotted several times at a local truck stop, and may have been trafficked by a well-known pimp in the area. John spent many nights staking out that truck stop, watching for any sign of Leah. Soon, he spotted the man he suspected was trafficking Leah, and he spent several more nights watching the man's movements, and hoping for any sign of his daughter. John tried to get a message to Leah through other sex workers, by asking the women to deliver a message to the pimp he suspected was trafficking Leah, but this only led to the women becoming unwilling to continue helping him, or offer up any information. At this point, John decided to take the information he'd gathered to the Albuquerque police. Police quickly started staking out the truck stop themselves, and one night they did end up making several drug-related arrests, but they didn't find any sign of Leah at the truck stop. After this, John continued sitting watch at the truck stop, and actually started receiving threats on his life. Back home in Fort Worth, Leah's mother Sharon actually received an anonymous call, telling her that Leah had gotten into a truck that was headed for Las Vegas, and that John needed to stop asking questions in Albuquerque. Eventually, the alleged pimp was arrested on drug-related charges, and police also questioned him about Leah Peebles. But he, of course, denied knowing who Leah was or having any knowledge of her whereabouts. After this, there were no further leads in Leah's case for several years. On February 2, 2009, a woman was walking her dog on Albuquerque's west side when she discovered something suspicious on a residential construction site. She had spotted a bone protruding from the ground, and, wondering if it could be human, she reported the discovery to the Albuquerque police. It turned out that the bone was in fact human, and in the following weeks, authorities discovered a total of 11 sets of human remains in the immediate area where the first bone had been found. This case became known as the West Mesa Murders, and though several suspects have been named over the years, no one has ever been arrested or charged in connection with these murders. The West Mesa case could very well be its own episode, but today we are going to focus on Leah Peebles' disappearance. Because the West Mesa discovery was so close to where Leah disappeared, Albuquerque authorities contacted Leah's parents, asking them to submit DNA samples to compare to the 11 sets of remains discovered. But none of the remains found were a match to Leah. 1 year after the discovery in West Mesa, all 11 victims had been formally identified as Jamie Barella, Monica Candelaria, Victoria Chavez, Virginia Cloven, Selania Edwards, Cinnamon Elks, Doreen Marquez, Julie Nieto, Veronica Romero, Evelyn Salazar, and Michelle Valdez. One of the women was also pregnant at the time that she was murdered, meaning that along with the 11 sets of human remains, authorities did find the remains of an unborn baby. There is wide speculation that the West Mesa murders were committed by a group of individuals in the area, likely involved in drug trafficking and prostitution. But again, the murders remain unsolved. Forensics determined that the burials had occurred between 2001 and 2005. Leah Peebles did not move to Albuquerque or disappear until 2006. However, there is also wide speculation that the West Mesa burial site had been abandoned after 2005, and that the perpetrators began burying their victims elsewhere, yet to be discovered. John did continue to advocate for Leah over the years, and even published a blog where he would post updates pleading for Leah's safe return, and even write letters to her. But on August 5, 2013, John Peebles passed away in a motorcycle accident in South Dakota, never knowing what happened to his daughter. As of July 2022, Sharon Peebles still lives in Texas, One of Leah's brothers is married and has children, and her other brother is engaged. They still talk about Leah and hold on to the hope that she is out there somewhere. It has now been over 16 years since Leah Peebles disappeared from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Around 8 p.m. on May 22, 2006, Leah left the home she was living in to meet a man at a motel on the outskirts of town. That man was forthcoming with information and is not believed to have anything to do with her disappearance. The last confirmed sighting of Leah was between May 22nd and May 23, 2006, when she brought her silver 2000 Volkswagen Beetle into a local transmission shop after being involved in an accident. Leah never returned to the shop to pick up her car. At the time of her disappearance, Leah was 23 years old. She has blue eyes, and her natural hair color is brown. However, she frequently dyed her hair different colors, such as blonde, black, or red. She did wear glasses and contact lenses. Leah's ears are both double-pierced and her upper lip is pierced. She has scars from previous piercings on her right ear, right nostril, and left eyebrow. Leah also has a scrolled flower tattoo on her upper back and a Celtic cross tattoo on her lower back. Leah was struggling with addiction for many years prior to her disappearance. At the time she disappeared, she was known to be in active addiction and potentially engaging in sex work. She may also have been going by the name Maya. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Leah Rochelle Peebles, please call the Albuquerque Police Department at 505-768-2020. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted and need help or resources, please contact RAIN, the United States' largest anti-sexual violence organization. You can call at 800-656-4673 or visit rain.org for more resources, including a live chat system. That's RAINN.org. And if you are struggling with addiction, please call the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration helpline at 800-662-4357 for resources and information on where you can find help. You can also visit their website at samhsa.gov. All sources for this episode will be listed in the show notes. If you'd like to request a case for me to cover, you can find the link to the case request form in the show notes as well. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at CrimeAgainPod, on Instagram at CrimeAgainPodcast, and on TikTok at CrimeAgainPodcast. Links to other pages like YouTube, Patreon, and Good Pods can also be found in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of Crime and Crime Again.